All right, hey guys, J-Man here with Steve and Sean. Let me just fix my camera there. Today we're doing the countdown to Halloween. So we're going to review or talk about a franchise leading up to Halloween every Friday. We're starting off with Phantasm. So that's the UK release of all the movies, the four, that five is not in there. So the way this is going to work, for Phantasm, it's not too bad because there's just 5 movies, but for some of these big mega franchises that have like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, we're not going to go through every movie because there's just not enough time. And plus, that's just boring anyways. I'm thinking that we're going to pick our movie that's the most sort of underrated one that people aren't talking about as much as they should be. And then we're going to say which is our worst one, and then we'll say which is our best one. So I've not discussed any of this previously, so we don't know where this is going to turn. So let's just make it easy. Like, what's like an underrated one? Like one of the Phantasm movies that you think, you know what, this was pretty good, but people don't seem to think it's that great. And spoilers are in effect, obviously, because that's just how it goes. If you haven't seen the 5 Phantasm movies, go watch all 5. They're all pretty much cool, so whatever. All right, so let's start off with you. What's the underrated now? So maybe not your best, but what do you think was kind of underrated?
Part 3.
Yeah.
Part 3 for sure. Like, I feel like no one talks about it. Like, everyone talks about 1, right? A lot. And after that, people are kind of like, yeah, it's good, but like 1 everyone loves, right? But like, I thought 3 was awesome. When I watched it again recently, it was like super good. And they did something really hard, which is make the kids not annoying.
Yeah.
Like, that is an art now. Because granted, if you have a kid in a movie, especially a horror movie, they're going to be flipping annoying. And I thought these kids were awesome. Like, they were survivalists. They could take care of themselves. Like, it was cool. Yeah. So I really like 3. I like Reggie.
Yeah.
Like, going around with him and just, I don't know. I just like the whole thing. I think this is the one too where the spheres actually got a personality, right? It had that one who was like turning against the rest. And like, I thought that was awesome. Like, such a neat concept. Like, the spheres around, they were just a weapon for like the previous 2, the previous movies. And then this one, they're like, no, there's different things now. Like, they can have a personality. They can,
because their brain, I don't think we saw in the other one, the brains were put into
the thing.
Into the thing. I don't think we had seen that in the other. Now, I've seen these movies tons of times and they start to blend together, so I might lose something, but I'm pretty sure 3 was the first time we saw.
3 is the one, yeah. He's in that candle area.
Yes.
And the brain inside.
And he's like this, like feeling it or whatever.
Yeah.
All right, so Sean, so what do you think out of the 5? Underrated.
So I'm going to give a cheat answer here because for the other franchises, I have an answer. But for this one, I would say the whole franchise, man. It's like nobody knows what Phantasm is. Phantasm was never popular. And everyone's like, oh, I don't understand them. It's like, yeah, you can pick one or the other. But like, I guess among horror fans and even not even horror fans, hardcore horror fans, because I don't think some horror fans even know what Phantasm is, especially if you're in your 20s,
Oh, for sure.
So I would say the whole franchise is underrated. Are you kidding me? It's like, it's unique. It's like, and I love this idea of like the quiet apocalypse that like happens around, like in the rural areas that no one cares about. And like, there's all this stuff happening, and like everyone else is like, oh, nothing's wrong, And then in 5, of course, it escalates, right? That's what we wanted to see, right? But no, I'd say the whole franchise, man, the whole thing. When I was a kid, I didn't even know what a Phantasm was until Part 2 came out. Part 2 opened people's eyes that there was a Phantasm at all. And back then, Part 2 came out in '88. And back then, Blockbuster wasn't really as prevalent as it would be in the early 90s. So if you went to a mom and pop video operation, you probably wouldn't find Phantasm there. So it was hard to find, right? So yeah, the whole franchise is underrated. That's my answer to that.
All right, so yeah, I agree with that. The whole franchise is underrated. It's one of my favorite series. I've met the tall man. I've got a picture with him, and I'm taller than him, which is disappointing, but
Yeah.
I sat with the tall man and Don Coscarelli and watched part 4 in the theater. They sat next to me in the theater,
That's awesome.
right, one above, one ahead of me. So I met Don, I met the tall man, I met Reggie Bannister. I have pictures, autographs. Every time Phantasm comes out, I rebuy it, all this crap. I'm gonna say I was torn between, obviously the whole franchise. I was torn between 3 and 4. I think I'm gonna go with 4, only to be different, because that one seems to be like, people are like, yeah, there's not much going on. It's a lot of reused footage, but it's not reused footage. It's footage that didn't make. It was new footage for us, but it was from part 1 that didn't get used. And I just thought the idea of Mike going to different locations and seeing Tall Man in different time periods and seeing him when he's just, Jedediah Morningside and he's doing the thing and it's like he's experimenting with the sound and waves and all that. I just thought that was really cool. So, and 4, I also saw it in the theater with the guys there, and that's when I met everybody. So that's a little bit of that's slightly a cheat answer too. But I think 4, it's kind of people are kind of like, yeah, it might be a little slow or whatever, but I like 4. So we're all different there, but I mean, nothing to really discuss there. Like 3 is great, whatever. Okay, let's go with the worst. I'll tell you what my worst is first, just to get it going. My worst is part 5, only because like 4 kind of wrapped it up in this weird way that kind of made it all come full circle. So it's almost like one of those time loops, like it's just going to start over again. And I thought that was kind of weird and eerie. And I thought, this is really kind of neat. Now 5, I still like because there's multiple timelines all converging. I'm not saying, this is weird. This is going to be one of these, this will probably be the only one in this series that we're doing where though my worst one is still a cool movie that I like anyways. All 5 Phantasm movies are awesome. Watch them all. I really like them all. Reggie Bannister is great. I love him in all of them. So Reggie is great in this 5th movie, but I don't know. It's just, if I have to pick one, this is the one I'm picking. I don't hate the movie. I still think it's cool, the timelines, and it's a little bit confusing, and you got a little bit of that apocalyptic future where the whole, the sphere's attacking, and it's like giant and all that. So that's kind of cool. But I guess just because 4 kind of seemed like it ended it, Don Coscarelli seemed like he was kind of like, yeah, I guess it's not going to happen. We thought Bruce Campbell would come out in part 5. That didn't happen. So I guess 5, just because it's not fully Don's thing anyway. So what about you, Steve? Weakest entry?
2.
Part 2?
Yeah, because it's the most not generic, but the most like mainstream of the 5, I would say, in style of horror, right?
Yep.
Like the Phantasm was obviously heavily influenced by Suspiria, right? I think it's pretty, like, the way it's done, it's almost like a dream. There's a lot of, like in the first one, there's a lot of fog and smoke and stuff, and like
the colors and stuff.
The colors are like emphasized, and like I feel like 3, 4, and 5 continue down that way. I agree with you that 5, it sort of sticks out a little bit. It just seems like an unnecessary add-on. I agree, they wrapped it up pretty good with 4, but it still had that. It felt like part of the series. 2 actually doesn't feel like part of the series to me. It has the same actors. But it's like, except for Mike, right? Except for Mike, they changed Mike.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's just, and then they have that girl, and there's like, they sort of tease, like she has these psychic things, but then nothing comes of it, and she just becomes a damsel in distress. And I don't know, like, it just felt like more of a, like Don Coscarelli didn't have to make that movie. You could have got any horror movie director to make that movie. Yeah. It just sort of sticks out as a weird entry in it. It's not terrible. I can watch it over and over again. And unfortunately, it's the only one I don't have on Blu-ray, which pisses me off. But like, yeah, for me, it has to be 2, just because it doesn't feel like it fits with the rest of the series.
Yeah. Sean?
I know you just wrote a love letter to it with part 4, man. Because
I know.
Listen, the thing is, 4 and 5 were made strictly for fans. Like, it looks like 2 and 3 were trying to break the mainstream, and it looks like Don Coscarelli. This is my speculation. Like, Don Coscarelli is like, I don't care about the mainstream anymore. I'm just making this for the fans. The fans want another one. I'm making one. And they have these thank yous at the end of the end credits too. It's like, we only did this because you wanted it, you know. 4 is cool if you follow Phantasm, but as a movie, it's like, it's cool that they have the new footage, like that the unused footage from part 1. And you know what? The remastered versions of that is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, those actually look more clearer, and the colors pop more.
Yeah.
For those like part 1 parts than
Right.
the modern stuff in part 4. It's crazy. It looks awesome. But look, all that stuff is a treat for fans. But like, as a movie, it's sleepy. It's like slowly paced. I mean, it's cool to see stuff like Jebediah Morningside and all that stuff, and the old lady, which I guess is like a precursor of the witch from part 1
Yeah.
that's like completely forgotten, right?
Yeah.
But that's cool. But it's just really sleepy. Like, I prefer 5 over 4. It's a narrow margin, but 4 is still awesome. It's not like the worst or whatever. It's just the least best to me. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so the thing with 4, this is gonna be okay. So well, I guess let's get to our favorite. So this is my favorite is part 2.
Well, it was on all the time on TV, man.
The thing is that,
WTV and City, yeah.
like, Phantasm 2 is going to be impossible for me to give any sort of critical analysis. It's the first one I saw. I missed the first 10 minutes of it. I started with them loading up weapons and making the 4-barrel gun. And I was just like, this is the greatest thing I'm watching right now. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, this is like 1 a.m. on City TV in Toronto or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this guy just made a 4-barrel gun. And I'm like, who is he fighting? And they go to that town and everybody's dead and the whole graveyards have been opened up and all the, I was like, holy crap. Like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. And then, like, you know, like the thing comes out of her back and all that. And it's like, and it's like, you play a good game, boy, and all that. I was like, holy crap. And then at the end, they pump him full of the acid, and the mortuary in part 2 is sick. It's super awesome. And they pump him full of acid, and his eyes blow up and all that. And then he's driving the car. I was like, what? And I'm like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. And it was, then I found it was Phantasm 2, and I went to Jumbo Video and I bought Phantasm 1. Phantasm 2 for me, it is the most, looking back on it now, it doesn't, you're right, Steve, it's weird. It's like, it was like this big, it's like a Universal movie. It's going to be out in theaters, and there's a bigger, the budget is like, whoa, it's like way better looking all of a sudden. The first one you could tell was just like made by a bunch of guys wanting to make a movie. And then part 2, all of a sudden everything's amped up.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the realization that Mike wasn't the same. When Mike came back in 3, I was like, hey, that looks like their first guy. Cause I had seen 2, then 1, then 3, then 4, then 5. And having James LaGrosse or whatever, who's the guy in part 2, is weird because it's like, he doesn't feel right now that you've seen all the other ones, but I can't help but love part 2, just the look of it. And it was my first one that I had seen, and it got me going on this series. So it's real hard to even try to critically analyze that movie. I wish that Michael Baldwin or whatever was Mike in it.
Yeah.
And then I'd be like, this is awesome. Because I do like the other guy, James LaGrosse, and he was in Near Dark and all that. But like, I just wasn't, I don't know. I just wish, that's the only thing that just stands out. But as a movie, it's still pretty wicked. Even if you didn't see part 1, you kind of get what's going on. The girl was dumped after that because they just realized, like, why is this even here? Like, you could remove 2 and almost not miss anything. Like, you could watch 1, 3, 4, and 5 and almost not really. You could watch 1, 3, and 4 and not even, you could probably skip the others and you'd still have a series.
Well, I don't know about that. I think 2 fills a lot of gaps. Like, I mean, the gun is created. 3 continues right from 2.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But he drops the gun in the basement and then has it later in 3.
That's weird.
There's a lot of weird continuity.
Yeah, and he shoots up into the trees, and then 4 guys pop out.
That's great. All right, so Phantasm 2 is my favorite because it is what it is. Steve, what's your favorite?
Well, mine's Phantasm 4.
I love Phantasm 4, I have to tell you. Okay, Phantasm 4, let's hear it.
I mean, Phantasm 4 was the one, I think, so you showed me 1 to 4, but you didn't show me in that order. I think you literally showed me in the order that you watched it.
Right.
So I think it was 2, 3, 1, 4.
I saw 1 before 3.
You saw 1 before 3.
Yeah.
You showed me 2 and 3 because they actually connect perfectly almost.
Yeah.
Like they're driving away in part 2 and in part 3.
Yeah,
like
it's
the
right,
girl.
right,
Yeah.
right.
And yeah. So like, I really like 4, man. I know, I agree, Sean, it's very sleepy, it's very slow, and it is made for fans. But my God, there's like, what I really enjoy about the Phantasm series, I didn't really get this until I watched it multiple times, was how unique it was and how much it was like, this is not your general horror series, right? This is very much a very surreal thing. It's almost like, what do you call it? The native people do this. It's like a dream quest or something.
Yeah.
Right? So like, what I love about part 4 is you have Reggie Bannister going and everything he's doing is in the real world. And then Mike is on this real weird dream quest.
Yeah, Vision Quest.
Yes.
Vision Quest.
Vision Quest. And he's doing like these things where it's like he's got a sphere in his head, you know, and like you finally get to see, like, I really like the idea that the tall man started out as a mortician, and he was very much like very normal, like, hey, you know, he shows up, he's like, can I help you, and you know, he wasn't this evil bastard to begin with. He sort of got corrupted by the dimensional portals and stuff, but like, it was a very innocent, you know, it was a very innocent behavior that ended up in that, like him accidentally ending up getting corrupted by that, right? And I really just love like Mike walking around discovering all this stuff and questioning about all this stuff. And you know, I think Jody is either in it or it's blending there, but Jody's in it, or he's like, he sees visions of him or stuff. I really love all that, because what I appreciate about 1 was the relationship between Mike and Jody. I didn't really get it until I saw it a second time. Like, wow, Jody was awesome, and his death was like terrible. It was so terrible. And then he gets into a sphere, and I'm like, oh God, this is like corrupting the dead body, right?
Yeah.
And I just love like how 4 reconnects everything and brings it all back and makes it full circle, right? It's so hard to get the 4th film to be that good, and I so appreciate what Coscarelli did doing that.
Yeah.
So.
Right,
yeah, I'm underwhelmed by the ending of 4. It's not Phantasm enough to me. There should be like a weird, terrible ending, like a nightmare ending, and I don't think they did enough with the whole. Obviously, I think what the story was supposed to be was Mike becomes the new tall man,
right?
And they didn't really do enough with that, and that's abandoned in part 5. So it makes 4 seem even worse to me. But that's cool. You guys love it, so it just seems disjointed to me, man. It's like a lot of it seems pointless because he didn't really follow through with a lot of stuff. And that whole thing with the car blowing up never made sense to me. It's cool, I guess, but I don't. It seems too conventional of a weird thing to happen in a Phantasm movie.
I find like but I find that like Phantasm more than most like horror series are feel movies, right? It's one where it's harder to judge what you're seeing on screen because you can't really judge if it's really taking place or not, right? Like you don't really know what's happening and what isn't. You know, that's the whole dreamlike thing. So I find that, you know, and you could call this a cop-out, like if you want to say that, like, well, you know, it's easy to say nothing matters if you just use this style, right? But I find like these are very much feel movies. You have to sit there and be like, I love Mike walking around discovering stuff, you know, like things are happening. They're weird things. Maybe they're connected, maybe they're not, you know, but I like the idea of him just walking around having this quest. And like sort of juxtaposing, like he has that ability to do that because Reggie's off doing all this like hardcore stuff over here. I really love how they separated Michael and Reggie in this and really made them two separate characters who you could believe could be friends, but didn't have to be together. They could go off on separate occasions, and you'd want to follow both of them.
Yeah. Plus, I just want to say for Phantasm 4, absolute best scene for me in all the Phantasms is when he's there and he's looking at Morningside doing the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jody's with him. He's guiding him on his vision quest, and then he activates the dimensional fork or whatever, and then he goes through, and then Mike takes out the knife. He's like, I'm gonna nail him. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm waiting for him to come back. He's like, he never does come back. And then it's the time, and like, that's the fucking best scene ever.
He comes back with the ball, and he's like,
he's got the ball like this,
yeah.
And then and the thing is like he's like looking around because they're in a different dimension, right?
Yeah.
But then he sees them. Yeah, and then he's like, boom, and you're like, oh fuck! It's like that is the best scene of all the Phantasms. The second best scene is also in that movie where he walks there. Where he sees Jebediah and his wife or whatever, and he goes, you're not from around here. He goes, your clothes, they look different. And then he's like, did you come through the dimensional fork? I was like, holy fuck! I was like, he knows what's going on. And then Mike gets super nervous, and I would have ran away too. I'm like, fuck this! And he runs off, and I was like, no! And then he's like, no, wait, don't go. He goes, there's so much I need to ask you, so much we need to know. Oh, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Anyways, those two scenes, plus everyone cheered in the theater when I saw that with the guys there, when Reggie put on the white outfit.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone applauded, and Don Coscarelli was like teary-eyed afterwards. He's like, guys, he goes, he couldn't talk. He's like, guys, I can't believe it. He goes, we threw that in there just as a fun thing, and people were dying. And he's like, we're so I was just like, it's just there's too many things with that movie that like I can't escape from. All right, Sean, what's your best Phantasm?
There's parts that bother me. Anyway, best and favorite are two different things to me. So best to me is part 1 because it wasn't supposed to have sequels after it and stuff. It's its own little nightmare. But my favorite is part 3. It's followed closely by part 2 because part 2, as I said before, was on all the time on TV, man. they cut the crap out of it, but like it was on all the time. But like part 3 is awesome. Part 3 to me is probably the most conventional of the Phantasms because it's got like it introduces more characters in there, barring part 5. It introduces more characters than 1, 2, and 4. Like there's those 3 a-holes that steal the car. There's the kid who kills those guys like by himself. Yeah. What's his name? Jim.
Tomahawk.
Yeah. He throws a tomahawk, and right when it sliced that woman's head, I was like, oh my god! I thought it would just hit a wall or something. Yeah. But it kills her. I'm like, he killed her. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then he throws that frisbee with the razor blades, and it goes,
yeah.
It's awesome, man. Rocky is wicked.
Rocky's great.
Partner's awesome.
She has nunchucks.
He turns up in like the end credits of part 5.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, we forgot Rocky. It's like, it's like, yeah, Rocky is awesome. That kid never came back, I guess, but yeah, all of that stuff is cool. And then then those dead guys come back for the big grand finale, and they have powers and stuff. It's just awesome. It's just, I feel there's a lot of imagination crammed into that movie. There's a lot of cool free-wielding thinking in that film that opens up the world, and it's the one that really, to me, it's like the Dawn of the Dead of the franchise, because it, like the real Dawn of the Dead, because it's the one that shows the apocalypse, like the quiet apocalypse in full. Like they go from town to town and they're all destroyed, and that one girl is taking in kids that just ran from the adjacent town, right? And meanwhile, no one is bothered. It's just a weird thing that's happening. So that's all cool. And there's already scavengers like Rocky and her partner and stuff. It's just a real fun, cool thing you could pop in and watch. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It's just a fun little movie. They're all awesome. That's my favorite one, though.
I feel like 2 and 3 got the most viewings from me because of Sean, of what you're saying. It's like they also they go together well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's a cool adventure. There's like all this like going to different towns and all that. 1 and 4 seem to be very similar. Like they're the serious, little slow, more to do with your mind and what's going on. Not a lot of action really going on. There's no shootouts or card flippings and whatever.
Yeah.
It's like it's more of the cerebral kind of what's going on.
Yeah.
Right. Versus like more actiony of 2 and 3. So when we're thinking like what are the better films, maybe part 1 is the best film, obviously, because without it there isn't anything else. But it is a good movie anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But like when you're bored, you're gonna throw in like Phantasm 3. I have a Phantasm 3 clock, which unfortunately I broke, but I still have it was like a wall clock, and the hands were I still have it. My buddy bought that for me like when Phantasm 3 came out. I remember when we had seen 1 and 2, and I had watched 1 and 2 several times, and we were counting down to when part 3 came out, and I got part 3 on VHS. I bought it from a rental shop, and man, we watched it, and I was like, no, it's not over yet. Like, all the balls are on
on the ceiling.
And it's like you're like, oh my god, but it's like it's not over. You're like, oh, it's not over. Like, what the hell? I literally thought it was going to be a trilogy because everyone always kept talking about the trilogy and all that. And not for Phantasm, they never said that, but I mean, just in general, like trilogies were a thing, right? And I thought, oh, this will be the last, this will conclude it all up and everything will be great. And it's like, oh shit, this didn't conclude anything. I was like, there's more questions raised in this thing.
That's Phantasm to me, right? It's not supposed to, right?
It's not supposed to, yeah. So, I mean, this is one of the weird ones. This will be the only one, I think, because if we're looking at the movies that the franchises that we're covering in the next few, I wanted to start with this one because I felt that it is underrated.
Yeah.
Let's start it off with something. We were toying around the idea. What movies are we going to cover? We're going to cover some of the 3 obvious ones that you have to cover if you do anything. So we know those 3. But then it's like, we're trying to think what else can we cover, and like this will be the only one where like all 5 are still pretty damn good. Like it's not like 5 is a piece of garbage or something. Like it's fine, right? Like
it depends what you want. Like millennials will never like Phantasm because the thing is, because I feel like the movie audiences in the past 20 or even 30 years want explanations for everything. Like I saw like no offense to millennials, but I saw a millennial review Back to the Future for the first time and loved the movie. This guy loved the movie, but he was like, how did Doc and Marty meet? Like, do they explain that? In the comments below, tell me if they explain they have a story of how they met. No, they don't. Yeah. Do you need that? And when I saw that in theater, it's like they're friends, done. It's shorthand. It's like that's not what the story is about. The story is about Back to the Future. And Phantasm is all about defying explanation. It's all about fear of the unknown, and we'll never know where Tall Man is really from. Is he from another dimension? And when you die, you come to him, right? But like, it's like you're not supposed to know all that. You're supposed to be afraid of like the unknown, right? And that's the whole point,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I this is why you're getting like these prequels that need to explain stuff and all that. It's like, I just can't stand it, to be honest. Like that as soon as if the guy's like, well, they didn't explain how they met in the Back to the Future thing that you told me, it's like, are you for real? Like nobody.
I never even thought of that till that guy said that. And
I never even thought of it till just you said it now. I'm like, what do you mean how they met? They became friends. Like, I don't know. Like he's a kooky guy, and Marty thought he was interesting. It's like scary German guy from Monster Squad.
Yeah.
Scary German guy. And then it's like, and they become friends with them because it's cool to be friends with the scary German guy. And, and Marty's kind of a little bit of an outsider-ish, so he teamed up with Doc. That's it. Like, who cares? I love that he goes there and tries to play the amp. He's like, oh, don't hook into it,
Yeah.
But yeah, Phantasm, no, you're not going to explain. Again, Reggie and Jody are friends. How do they become friends? Who knows? They're buddies, right? They're musicians. They're rock and rollers. They like their stuff. They party. That's it. So I think Phantasm. I think what happened with 3 to 4 is that they felt there's too many characters going on, and they lost the connection of the Jody, Reggie,
Yeah.
Mike, like,
Mike thing. Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
triangle.
The triangle.
And it was like they're the buddies, they're the hardcore guys from part one. So it's like Tim is just basically killed off. We don't see what happens to Rocky until the end credits of part 5.
Yeah.
And it just goes back to Reggie being alone or whatever. So it's kind of weird. But yeah, like none of us share the opinion on any of it. I'm very surprised that none of us have the same.
Did you notice too that Don Coscarelli must have been a huge Dune fan, because like in part 1, they have the Jungle Bar. It's like there's a black box that Mike has to put his hand in, and there's like pain and stuff, and they're like, fear is the killer. They all say fear is the mind killer, and then later on he uses that. So yeah, I was like, what the heck? He like back then he must have been a fan of the book or something. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And the whole thing with the Jawas looking like the dwarves that the tall man uses as slaves. It's like, that's a complete coincidence, because they were making Phantasm, and I think Star Wars maybe came out before it, or something.
Came out before, yeah.
It did come out before, but Phantasm was still in production
while they were making it.
Yeah. So that, I mean, because I always thought that too. I'm like, hey, they look like Jawas or something.
Yeah.
I love Jawas because they're great, but the dwarves are a killer in Phantasm. All right, so we're down to our last 5. I guess we covered everything pretty much. Any favorite scenes? I told you the scenes I like. Part 3 has a great intro where they talk about what's happened in the other movies. Part 3's intro is like my favorite, where it's like he's sitting with all the candles, and he's there, and he's like whoosh, and he like turns it, and it's like that entire. I love all the openings.
It's like the WrestleMania recap. It's like
I love
like,
I love WrestleMania recaps, and I love the beginning of WrestleMania where they were talking about what was going on, and they had the and it'd be like, or Royal Rumble, when they would show every guy who's in the Royal Rumble, and then every 3 or 4 guys they'd pause, and then it'd go to the guy and be like, I'm gonna destroy 29 other guys in the Rumble, and then it'd go back.
I just want to say one thing about
event, man. Yeah. Saturday Night Main Event, where they would have the guys walking through, and like they would just like do the little promos, like and then when they cut to this next one, to me that was the best.
I just want to say one thing about the franchise in general is that I think part of the strength of Phantasm is now lost in that, like, the movies were so far apart, they really built up an appetite for the next one.
Yeah.
And like that's where the fervent fans, like, they would write in like, Don, like, do another one, and now you have them all on Blu-ray or DVD, and you just like binge them, and that's sort of lost. And plus, like, one thing when you do binge them now is that back then you didn't really notice the age differences, because it was such a long time between the movies. And now it's like everyone looks like 10 years older in the next one, and they're recreating scenes and stuff, and you just go with it. Like Tall Man is getting older. It's like, well, why would that be? But sure, I'll go with it. I won't say anything.
Yeah,
like he has black hair in the first one.
I know,
so,
and I watched. I mean, I didn't see I saw Phantasm 2 off TV, but I saw Phantasm 3, 4, and 5 immediately upon release.
Yeah.
So, and I was waiting. Like,
then you wait for them. Like at the end of 3, like Reggie is trapped by all those like hundreds of balls, and you're like, what's going to happen? And it took so long to get to the next one, and you got it, and but you're waiting. You don't just pop it like, no, I'll just pop it in. See what happens. Yeah.
Something's been lost in this binging. It's just, even with Star Wars, it's like I don't want this to turn into Star Wars in the last like couple minutes, but like, whatever, it's like, give us some time to digest what we've seen. And, for me, like, I'm literally just now, like, thinking about Captain America, like part 1 for like, I'm like, yeah, Captain America, that was pretty good. It's like, wait, that was like 10 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, it takes me a while to get re-excited for something later.
Yeah.
Like, when I got Spider-Man, the trilogy on Blu-ray, so not even the DVDs, like I got them on DVD, like, yeah, they're cool. Then when I got them on Blu-ray, I'm like, man, these are really cool. It's like Spider-Man 2 is a great movie. And it's like, I'm discovering it. It's like we go to see these in the theater, and then it's like a month later we own it. and then like a year after that, part 2 is coming out, and you're like, I haven't even rewatched part 1.
I don't think of it fondly because there hasn't been enough time yet. So
yeah. I haven't gotten excited. Like Phantasm, like I would be like, oh my God. Like,
Yeah.
And then when 5 got sprung on us, I'm like, wow, it's been so long. Wow, part 5, this is crazy. It's like, it's too fast. But all right, last couple of minutes. Anything else? I guess are we good?
We're good.
Yeah, it's an awesome franchise. It's probably done now, but it's wicked.
Well, the tall man has unfortunately passed away, so I
Yeah.
can't see them recasting that part.
Well, make Mike the tall man. He's supposed to be.
I would love to see Mike as the tall man, to be honest. You know what? I was always thinking that, in Phantasm, it was like, it's like Mike was supposed to be the next tall man, then Mike would pick the next, and that's how that kind of went on, right? Like there would always be a tall man, and the previous tall man would, kind of help the other one grow into, and he's like, you see what I want you to see, and that was the thing with part 4. He's taking him on this journey so he can see how the tall man came to be and how he's going to continue it on. What a damn awesome, I mean, this is crazy. Like, it's so damn awesome. It's like, screw all these other series. Phantasm's the best. All right, so I guess we'll leave it at that then. All right, guys, so next week, I'm not gonna tell you what we're doing next week, but we'll see you next Friday for some more horror movie talk. All right, thanks for watching.